Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word. Energy security is one of the most pressing issues for many developing countries like Nigeria. And if there's going to be any meaningful progress, addressing our energy issues is non-negotiable.
I need to see light from my house. Make them do something.
Band A is expensive. I literally have to turn off all my appliances just to reduce costs.
We need light.
Introducing the Energy Outlook, your go-to show for everything energy. Every week, we'll bring you the latest insights, innovation, and in-depth analysis of Nigeria's energy sector. From policy discussions to regulatory insights, we will analyze the key decisions influencing growth and sustainability in the energy sector. We'll bring you the human stories behind the headlines, giving you a personal perspective on the broader energy challenges. Join me every Friday at 6 p.m. for the Energy Outlook, your guide to the future of energy, where energy means business. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Energy Outlook. My name is Wisdom Chap Jumbo. This week, we come with another set of conversation to discuss on the program today. And we are focusing on a very crucial part, and I think it's a very important part that we need to address, boosting Nigeria's energy supply. What are the challenges and where are the opportunities? Very important. The energy sector is indeed broad. But as we work towards closing the energy access gap, as we try to fix different aspects of the sector, we need to also consider where are the challenges and where are the opportunities. This is where we'll be going into today for our conversation. But first, as always, I'll bring you your top stories to bring you up to speed to what is happening within the sector. This is really not a pleasant news for me, as it is happening to me just right in my home. We understand this week Fire Gulf 2 NNPC flow stations in Bonny local government in Rivers State. These flow stations, owned by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, were gulfed by fire on Wednesday in one of the channels around the western Bonny local government area in Rivers State. The NNPC reports that at approximately 14:10 hours on Wednesday, February the 19th, a fire broke out on the dry crude oil storage barge at Caltron Channel 1, Rivers State. These two flow stations were located around this channel area, flooded with an area flooded with oil and gas facilities on the western flank of Bonny. The Chief Corporate Communications Officer of NNPC, Mr. Olu Femi Shonaye, in his press statement to the press, says that thanks to a swift response of its emergency team and industry partners, the fire was successfully contained, and the incident did not impact on the flow station's operations. I will just show you a quick clip so that you see what happened with this fire and when it occurred. On Wednesday, February the 19th. It is really a sad one, as like I said, this is happening right in my local government, as I'm personally from Bonny local government, and this is not good. We're happy that no harm was caused, but we call on the NNPC to indeed move really fast to see how they can manage the situation. I understand the House of Rep member representing Bonny and Degema Federal Constituency at the National Assembly has also raised this as a motion on the floor of the House of Reps, calling actions of the National Assembly, and this is indeed a good one. This, as you're looking at the clip on your screen, is not a good sight. This is not something we should be having at this time, and this is greatly impacting the people of Bonny local government. I'm also using this medium to call the NNPCL and other stakeholders to indeed move swiftly to Bonny local government to see what can be done. Several of these similar situations have been happening, and we need to curtail this as soon as possible. The government in the area are doing their very best, but they need support, and the oil companies need to indeed take responsibility for this. Other stories, fuel efficiency controversy. Earlier this week, of course, we saw this on social media and other media, and it's been a talk of the entire week on this what comparison we did with Dangote fuel and MRS fuel. And we know that the fuel queues in MRS has indeed increased massively. And some people say they've known this trick for a long time, but they've not used it. But when this video went viral, the NNPC also came out to say, look, they dismissed any allegation that the fuel from Dangote refinery burns faster as expected, calling that the claims are misleading and affirming that all imported fuel meet industry standard. And this is from the NNPC. But once on the street and everywhere, this video has gone viral. And I think where we need to look at is what kind of products are we bringing into the country? The NNPC has said, you know what, this is not true, and all of that, and they're keeping to that. They've also said the NNPC now has denied that they imported 200 million liters of petrol. The NNPC has said in a report earlier this week that they firmly deny imported 200 million liters of premium motor spirit, commonly referred to as petrol, and they have disclosed that the company hasn't imported a single volume of product in 2025. This revelation was contained in a rejoinder issued by the NNPCL Chief Corporate Communications Officer Olufemi Shoneye on Tuesday earlier this week in Abuja. So they've come to say, because all of this conversion came off that comparison video that has indeed gone viral. We don't want to flog that over again. There have been many analyses up and about this issue. But, the truth is, if I will say something on that, we as Nigerians, we know the one that is working the way we want it to work. But it's a charge to the NNPC. We need to see, many experts have said, can we see the lab where you are analyzing some of these products that come into the country, and especially the ones that come from the NNPC refineries in Warri and Port Harcourt, so that we can see, what is the comparison of your product that you are putting to the market and all of that. There's a lot of conversations, and I hope one of our episodes we are going to indeed dissect this information critically and look at where that is coming. So, and they've also denied that they imported 200 million liters, and the NNPC is saying this year they've not imported any fuel because there were claims that some of those fuels that were imported were part of the issue that we're having. But good news. Part of the reports we got this week is that Nigeria has finally exceeded their OPEC quota as oil output surpasses 1.5 million barrels per day. Nigeria has been struggling to indeed surpass the OPEC quota, and finally the quota. We have exceeded it in good standing, and we hope that this continues. It means the government is indeed doing quite a lot of work. And I know I've listened to the special advisor on energy to the president really analyze different angles to what the government is doing to have achieved this feat. And we hope that whatever it is sustained so that we can see more projections and we can see more growth within the sector. And this is good news for Nigeria. We finally have achieved this. So back to power sector now. Despite 7.2 trillion subsidies, power sector inefficiencies take toll on consumers. This report we saw earlier this week where, of course, the power sector has been on the radar for quite a long time. Customers have been talking. Customers have been raising the issue of increased tariff, increased and low delivery of power to them. So despite the 4.2 trillion subsidies, power sector inefficiencies take toll on customers. And in this report, we see that the Nigerian electricity consumers have continued to raise concern over the multiple-year tariff structure of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. And that report is on the Punch newspaper in case you want to look at it again. Very important that we look at that. One thing I like about this report is it analyzes some of the areas that needs to be looked at that I feel like we need to also address. Currently, electricity consumers bear the cost of 15 naira per kilowatt per hour for gas supply, and 70 naira kilowatt as power generation costs, while transmission contributes 11 kilowatt 11 naira per kilo distribution costs, and sort of that breakdown brings to the composition of the tariff of 208 naira kilowatt per hour. I mean, all of these are issues that we need to really look at, and we promise we'll be dissecting this on the program so you see a clear picture of it. Finally, this report coming from Oyo State chapter of the Nigerian Labour Congress is very disturbing. Well, the NLC shut down the IBEDC over sacking of 3,000 workers. The Oyo State chapter of the Nigerian Labour Congress brought operations at the Ibadan Electricity Distribution Company to a standstill on Tuesday, staging a massive protest over the recent dismissal of 3,000 employees. Led by its chairman, Kayode Martins, the union members barricaded the entrance of the Ibadan Electricity Distribution Company office in Ibadan, shutting down the facility and causing traffic disruption in the city in Ibadan there. This is very also disturbing. We hope that this is being managed. We are following the story and we'll bring updates as we go on. But this kind of news indeed worries us. 3,000 workers, that's a big one. What is indeed happening there? I'm reaching out to people in the Ibadan Electricity Distribution Company, of course, to come and give us insight on what is happening with this story, but we thought to also share with you. So before we get back into our conversation for today, next week in Abuja, we know that the Nigeria International Energy Summit will be happening in Abuja for 4 days, and critical conversations will be held, and we'll be following this also as part of what we are doing on the Energy Outlook. Is after those conferences, what happens next? What will be the next thing we'll be looking out for? So the NIES, which is the Nigeria International Energy Summit, is happening in Abuja next week. And we hope, because the president will also be there and key members of the government will be there at that. Okay, so back to our conversation for this week. 2 episodes or 2 weeks ago, we brought a report where we saw solar panels, burning the roof of a building. It's not what we want to see, to be very honest. And that report was very disturbing for me. And I told myself, I'm going to get someone who will come into the studio, of course, to tell us, is it possible for first solar panels to cause such kind of fire or not? If not, what can we do to prevent it? If not, what are the precautions or the safety measures we must put together? And that is very important because we want to close the energy access gap for 86 million Nigerians. Then we need to take very crucial, these issues when they happen as they affect solar. We'll go on a short break, and when we're back, my guests will join us and we'll discuss some of these issues. All right, welcome back. This is the Energy Outlook, and like I said before, we went on that short break. I have a guest in the studio who will be telling us everything you need to know about solar technology. His name is Engineer Aniefiok Osoro. Annie, good to have you on the program.
To be here.
Finally. We've been talking about doing some of this sometime, and I'm happy that you're able to make it to the studio today.
Thank you.
So, Annie, I'm going to ask you, can solar cause fire on a building?
Okay, so Wisdom, thank you for having me, and I'll say well done to Energy Outlook for keeping us informed on what is happening in the industry.
Yes.
So before I go into your question, I'll try to give you a background that would help you understand the angle from which I'll be coming. So I started my training at Power Systems, then went into renewable, I did a lot of installations, and then later I now joined a company. Now, this company, we are into solar panel manufacturing, LPV technology. So the process of manufacturing panels, I had to do extensive training on how to manufacture
so you understand
high quality.
the technology behind panels.
So I'll be coming from different angles to attack the question. First off, I'd like to say we look at it from the man, which is the installer, and then we look at the materials that you use, and then we look at the panels to say what would cause the fire, in my own opinion.
Because the importance of this question is people are switching to solar.
Yes.
They spend money, they buy solar panels, they put on their roof, and they buy the batteries, and they put the system in the house. Now, when we see a report that allegedly that solar is causing fire on the roof of a house, everybody is disturbed. I am disturbed. That's why I've asked the question to you. Is it possible that the solar I have on my roof can actually cause such level of fire?
Yes, it can cause a fire. But then again, the question is, how does it happen, and what is really responsible? So first off, I'll say it would always start with the installer. In my opinion, 50 to 60% of the reason for a fire on a roof would come from the installer. Because if the installer doesn't do the work properly, then of course it can lead to a short circuit. So what simply happens is, your roof is basically made out of metal materials, whether it's zinc or aluminum or whatever. So now when you have an exposure of a cable, and then this cable touches where it's not supposed to touch, so you have a short circuit, and that short circuit leads to heat. Then we remember our fire triangle. Fire triangle simply says 3 things have to be present for fire to happen. There has to be heat, there has to be a source of fuel, something to keep it burning, and oxygen. Oxygen is readily available. Heat is something that is created when there is a short circuit. And then, of course, your roofing materials is also made from wood. So wood is the source of
So there's a possibility.
So there's a possibility. So now the question now goes to, what are the circumstances that can lead to this? A good one now would now start with the materials you use. For instance, now the common material you find when doing your connection is what we call an MC4, and that's why I have this here. So the MC4 connector is what helps to make 3 things happen. 1, it helps to give you a clean and tight connection. 2, it helps to weatherproof your connection. Remember that this is out there in the open. Heat, water, rain. So you need to weatherproof your connection.
Weatherproof.
Yes. And then thirdly, the MC4 connector makes sure that when you make a connection, you cannot, in error or by mistake, pull off. So like this, you have the male and female.
So this is the MC4?
Yes.
Okay, this one you're holding now?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you plug it, you hear a click.
Okay.
That gives you an idea that it has been properly. So if you try to pull this apart, no matter how hard you try,
it won't work.
It won't work.
And this happened, this is plugged on the roof?
On the roof.
Okay.
So the challenge is this. When you now have an installer that doesn't make use of the MC4 connector because he wants to cut costs, he cuts the cable and then joins it directly without the MC4 connector.
And use maybe
tape.
Okay, tape to tape it round.
Tape it. So what do you now do? You are now exposing that connection to weather, and then when weather acts on it, it gets exposed and you have those cables lying on the roof. When the cable lies on the roof and it touches the roof and it causes a short circuit, before you know it, you're talking of fire.
So is this something that every solar installer knows? Is it a standard? Is it best practice?
Yes, so your connections is best practice to use the right, we call them terminators. But to the question of whether it's something that all installers know, I would say not all installers. Because the challenge we have in installation is that you call an electrician to do your wiring at home, and then you tell him you want to do solar, and he says he can do solar. He's not been trained to do solar installation. And then you now engage him to do solar installation that he has not been trained for. So when you say, do they all know? That person might not know. Secondly, even the cables that you use for your connections on your roof, they are specific cables. You have, that's why I also have this here. You have double insulated cables that give you that ability to go through what the weather would pass it through. So if an electrician that just knows his normal electricity at home uses just any cable, before you know it, those cables would fail. And when these cables fail, they can lead to this short circuit that will lead to the fire.
So what I'm getting from what you're saying now is before anyone installs solar, you need to have undergone a training to understand how the installation works.
Yes. You need to know the two things. You need to know what to do and why you're doing what you're doing. Because it's one thing to say, okay, I know what to do. Then circumstances change. And then you have to change what you know to do based on the circumstance that has changed. But because you don't know why you're doing what, you just repeat what you know to do. And so in a case where, for instance, now you have several solar panels and you don't know that, okay, the sizing of the cables also matter. You use the same size that you've always known to use. And before you know it, those cables begin to heat up. And when those cables begin to heat up, it can easily lead to a fire. Now, the other thing is this. In my own opinion, the panels themselves, the solar panels themselves, are the least likely to cause a fire. I told you that I work for LPV Technologies. LPV Technologies, in our training, we're shown how these panels are made. And you know how you do it in school. Then you get a document, you put it into what do you call it, plastic material, and you laminate it. What that lamination now makes it as one firm, rigid document. So now that's what you do with your solar panels. So you place your cells, you place your back sheet, and then you laminate it. So what that does is that it takes out the oxygen component. Remember the fire triangle? Oxygen, source of fuel, and heat. So it takes off the oxygen component. So when there is no oxygen to support fire, it's less likely to happen. It takes a lot for it to burn through both the back sheet and then the glass on top.
So all of this you've explained, is it from your experience? Is this something that everybody knows, but they choose to ignore and go to get it cheaper somewhere? Is it an issue of costs, or is it an issue of some people just want to go and get it cheap either ways? What do you think is the problem?
Well, maybe a little of both. So many people, when you call an installer, a professional installer, and he gives you a quotation, and let's say, for instance, he says this system will cost 7 million naira, and you go saying, but I know somebody that can do it for 5 million or 4 point something million, and then you impress on this installer or go to someone else to force that price. So what happens is, he now thinks of ways to cut short. Oh, he doesn't want to buy a MC4 connector. He doesn't want to buy the PV cable because it's more expensive. He begins to look for ways to cut costs, to fit into that budget that you have given him. So at the end of the day, you discover that this cheap that we are looking for is not really the best. So that's why I say it's a little bit of both. When you say, is it cost or is it's both of them plain. But the truth is that if we begin to consider these things and the after effects, what happens if my roof goes on fire? You begin to realize that cost you're trying to save, you're actually paying more in replacing your roof.
Okay, so let's do it like this now, so that our viewers will understand much better. So if I want to fix solar for my house, and I call an installer or a company to fix for me, what are the things I should look out for to ensure that my safety is guaranteed, or I have confidence that this is safe for my house? What are the things you need to look out for?
Very good question. So the first thing I'll say, especially when you're dealing with a private installer, not a company, because company, you will probably believe that they've done their due diligence to get the right people. But if you're dealing with a private installer, you want to ask a lot of questions.
Like what?
So you want to ask, okay, how do you intend to set up the panels on my roof? What will you use? How will you pass the cable? These questions you're asking, you want to get a sense that the person doing the installation understands what he's doing and why he's doing what he's doing. So in explaining to you, you begin to get this sense of this person knows what he's doing. And that's where the female folks, to be honest, really do well, because they are the ones that always ask the most questions. So when you ask these questions, you begin to two things happen. You learn yourself, and then you begin to get a sense that this person knows or does not know. So when you ask this question and the person is avoiding the question, doesn't give you direct answer, it's a red flag. So you want to ask questions. That's the first thing. Then secondly, like I said before, you want to be careful about forcing your own bill or your own price on an installer. So if he gives you a quotation, You discuss with him, you know, fine, okay, there are some negotiations that can go on and he can bring it to. But when you keep insisting and pushing, there's a likelihood
that he wants to cut costs,
come into,
and then remove the key things that will bring to your safety. Okay.
So those are the two things you want to. Then, of course, you also want to check the roof that you're going to be placing your panels.
What kind of roof?
What kind of roof?
Yes, what kind of
How
roof?
is he going to set it up? Those questions you ask the installer.
So what kind of roof best fit for a solar installation?
Well, for a solar installation, basically you need a roof that is wide, so you don't have too many corners.
Okay.
You need a roof that is wide and plain. And then, of course, you need a roof that is very healthy. You don't want a roof that when the installer stands on, it begins to cave in, and because of that, the installer is too conscious of his movements on the roof and tries to do things quickly. Because you know the roof is already an uncomfortable place.
Okay.
So when you're not even sure of the safety or the strength of the roof, the installer tries to do things quickly and begins to make some errors that can lead to things like a fire.
Okay. Finally, before I let you go, my question will be, are there standards, maybe like, are you regulated in a way by government that maybe the Standard Organization of Nigeria has provided standards that you must conform with, either as a private installer or a company that you must conform to? Maybe Nigerians don't know, if you want to tell us, or you just, what are those things that you how will I put it, you have to comply with? Are there any regulations that you work with when installing? Just like we know for the discos, we know that there are certain things they must meet when they are connecting the grid to your house, blah blah, all of that. For the solar now, is it the same thing?
Yeah, in a way it is, because solar is still under electricity or power as a whole. So there are some rules. There are basic things that if you learnt your basics in electricity, you should understand. For instance, now the size of cables you're to use. You know that in your calculation, you know how much power is passing through that cable.
Okay.
And you know how much, in terms of what size of cable can support that kind of power.
Okay.
So if, for instance, you go using an undersized cable because you want to cut cost, already you know you're breaking the rule. So if you have the basic electricity and electrical knowledge. And of course, you've gone a step further to now learn more in terms of solar installations, because like I told you, the solar cable is different and all that. Of course, you know the rules. If you go against the rules, it's you now going against the rules. Then, of course, you also have different bodies. I know that even Koren now is giving a form of certification for solar installers.
To certify.
Yes.
So should we begin to look out for Koren certified engineers?
Yes.
Okay.
So you have this we might not be there yet, but something is happening. So you have Koren, like I've mentioned, even REN, that's the organization
the Renewable Energy Association of Nigeria.
Yes. So you have all these corporate institutions and even government institutions putting an eye on this, and of course that regulates us.
Finally, there are some landlords who don't allow solar installations on their roof.
Okay.
When you rent an apartment, your landlord will not allow you to put solar on your roof. And one of their first fear is this issue of fire. Have you experienced that before with certain clients? And how do you think, what will you tell landlords? How can they manage that?
Okay, yes. So it's, of course, with social media and what everybody is seeing on the social media, you won't blame a landlord for wanting to keep the possibility of a fire on his property. So, but the thing is this, for landlords, the advice will always be that you want to make sure that whoever is doing this installation is a professional.
It's a professional.
So you want to make sure that is always the first step. So you cannot say no to maybe your tenant. You cannot stop him from doing the solar installation to help himself or to better his electricity supply. But you can also help yourself by ensuring that, okay, fine, how good is this roof that you want to place these panels? And who are you using to do this installation?
Okay.
The person should give you some form of confidence that the right person is doing the installation. Okay. Of course, you can also decide to visit if you have the time to see for yourself what has been done. But generally speaking, solar has come to stay. We just have to make it work.
I like that. I like that. Thank you so much, Aniefok Usoro. Aniefok is a solar technology engineer. I got that correct. And he has been doing this for quite a while. And I really must thank you for coming on the program, for giving us insight on this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go on a quick break. And when we're back, we'll move quickly to our next conversation for tonight.
Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word. Energy security is one of the most pressing issues for many developing countries like Nigeria. And if there's going to be any meaningful progress, addressing our energy issues is non-negotiable.
I need to see light for my house. Make them do something.
Band A is expensive. I literally have to turn off all my appliances just to reduce costs.
We need light.
Introducing the Energy Outlook, your go-to show for everything energy. Every week, we'll bring you the latest insights, innovation, and in-depth analysis of Nigeria's energy sector. From policy discussions to regulatory insights, we'll analyze the key decisions influencing growth and sustainability in the energy sector. We'll bring you the human stories behind the headlines, giving you a personal perspective on the broader energy challenges. Join me every Friday at 6 p.m. for the Energy Outlook, your guide to the future of energy, where energy means business.
This is the Energy Outlook. So our next conversation we move quickly is a very important one. And we're discussing boosting Nigeria's energy supply, challenges and opportunities, especially in the area of implementing mini-grids. Just recently, the IFC signed an agreement with 5 energy companies in Nigeria. And this partnership, of course, is a $70 million partnership with the International Finance Corporation. And this marks a very major milestone in expanding electricity access to undeserved communities. Nigeria currently, according to the numbers, have about 86 million people who lack access to energy. And there are many off-grid communities that need to be powered with electricity. How do we connect to the off-grid communities? We understand mini-grids are one of the avenues we can achieve that. So my guest today is one of these 5 companies that have gone into an agreement with the International Finance Corporation to, of course, boost electricity supply to many undeserved communities. I'm happy to have him on the program as we discuss, very important issues around and the challenges of implementing mini-grids for communities and, of course, boosting the energy supply of Nigeria. My guest is Mr. Olusegun Odunaya, CEO, Haven Hill Synergy Limited. Welcome to the program, sir. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, Wisdom. Good evening. Thank you for having me here.
Good evening. Such a pleasure to have you.
Good evening to our listeners.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for making out the time. And it's a good time to say congratulations on this deal or agreement with the IFC. Tell us really about it. How did this happen and what are some of the details maybe we've not heard on the media already? If you could just walk us through what you have gone into agreement with the IFC.
Okay, thank you once again. As you are aware, it started, I think, some 5, 6, 7 years ago when, the federal government of Nigeria started looking at, developing distributed, renewable energy solutions across Nigeria, especially, from our off-grid rural community perspective. And that led to the World Bank-funded Nigeria Electrification Project, which is coming to an end. And then following that, you have the DS program, which is the Distributed Access for Renewable Energy Scale-up. It's a $750 million, program funded by the World Bank and some, development finance institution. Having said that, the IFC funding is a $200 million packet that is on the backbone of this World Bank funding for renewable energy scale up in Nigeria. And a component of that program is targeted at electrifying off-grid rural communities that are not connected to the national grid. And specifically, that one of those components is a performance-based component, meaning that this funding will not just be given, or this subsidy will not just be given to developers, like that. You must have built those projects and operated those projects for a specific period of time before you get that subsidy from the government. And so the funding that IFC is putting in place is to catalyze the markets. If we want to have 10,000 mini grids over the next couple of years, there must be significant investment in this space. And so I think IFC in their own wisdom, began, looking for companies who have the capacity, the technical, and what you have me to be able to deploy this project, to be able to, not just only build this project, but, sustain this project, serve these communities. And so we found ourselves, of course, over the years, we've been growing the company, improving our skills, our technical ability, and all those things like that. And so we're one of the organizations that, IFC started looking at, their project pipeline. And then we got to that point that we believe that, we're at that point that we need to scale. I think in 2021, we did our first scale from, we moved from 1 mini grid to 30 mini grids. And so now with this funding, we're able to move from, 30 mini grids to close to 100 mini grids over the next 18 months.
Okay, so I want you to tell us a little more about Haven Hill. I mean, you've said you have 30 mini grids in your portfolio. I mean, you've been in this sector for quite a while. I know, and I follow the work you've been doing. But for the sake of our viewers, tell us briefly about the company, what you've been doing, and if you also want to tell us more about those 30 mini grids you already have in your portfolio, where are they really, and just give us insight to how that has been working for you.
Yeah, thank you. So, Haven Hill, we are a clean tech utility company. You can define us like a Disco and a Genco together. So we use solar energy to generate clean, safe, cost-effective, and sustainable electricity, in rural and urban Nigeria. And what do we do in rural communities? We identify commercially viable off-grid rural communities. These are communities that have never been connected to the national grid, communities that have never used electricity before, in terms of, sustainable electricity. Either they use either petrol or diesel generator to power their operations. When we find these communities, we then design our solution. We create our own distribution infrastructure. We set up the generation asset and also ensure that every customer, unlike in the urban area that you still have customers being billed what you call estimated billing. Every customer in our mini grid site have, smart prepaid electricity meters. And so we do all that to ensure that people in that rural community have, access to electricity in a sustainable manner. And that's what we do in the rural community. In the urban area, we help commercial and industrial customers. People rely on electricity to conduct their businesses, from manufacturing to schools to healthcare facilities, name it, whatever sector that they belong to. As long as they require electricity, we're coming to help them diversify their energy mix, bring in a sustainable solution and reduce their costs. Because as you know today, if you're going to generate power from a diesel generator, which a lot of Nigerians rely on, is quite expensive. And so we've had significant progress. In the rural communities, I mentioned that, we scaled from 4 mini grids in 2021 to 30. Now we operate close to 40 mini grids. Our mini grids we have in Oyo State, we have in Kwara State, we have mini grids in Enugu, we have in Kogi, we have in Osun, and they range from our biggest mini grid today, is 600 kilowatts, and then the smallest is 16 kilowatts, serving over 15,000 unique customers. And our projects across our rural communities serve close to 80,000, Nigerians, on a daily basis. In the urban area, we, like I mentioned, helping commercial and industrial customers. For example, in Ibadan, we have a project on the rooftop of Fan Milk. Fan Milk is one of the, if not the biggest dairy producer in Nigeria. We have a 1 megawatt on their rooftop powering, their manufacturing facility. In Kano, for example, we also have another 1 megawatt on the rooftop of Ado Bayero Mall. So we find ourselves playing both, in the rural side of things.
So if I will come in, if I will come in here now, which brings, I like that you've given us a breakdown of all of this. It gives my next question. Are mini grids, are they working for us? Looking at the costs to finance one mini grid project in any of these communities, are they working for us? And if we must close the energy access gap in underserved or rural areas, if you compare this to solar home systems, are mini grids the way to go? Would that be what you say? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you, Wisdom. Yes, mini grids are the way to go where, it is going to work. I think the mistake that has happened over time is that people deploy mini grids where you're supposed to deploy solar home systems. Of course, there are areas where you require solar home systems, and there are areas where you require mini grids. It will interest you to know that there are communities, in fact, there are local governments in this country that don't have access to electricity, and these are places whereby if you put 2-3 megawatt of, mini grid, it won't even be enough to serve them. So how do you serve such communities with solar home systems? So mini grids work where you've done proper, demand studies, you've done your assessment, you've done proper stakeholder engagement and management. Mini grids actually work. Yes, of course, the mini grid regulation of, is it 2017, which has been described as one of the best,
yes,
mini grid regulation in Africa,
yes,
enables and empowers, mini grid developers to go into, unserved or underserved rural communities, or even peri-urban communities, or even urban communities, because on the other side of, isolated mini grids is where you have the interconnected mini grids that, that reaches out to areas where the discos are not properly serving, or where, the people who are the last mile at the end of their network. So mini grids work. Yes, over the years, you would see whereby, when the disco tariff in Nigeria, the general tariff has been maybe below 100 naira, and you hear that, mini grid developers, are charging, above 100 naira, as the case may be. But you still understand that even as at the current tariff today in Nigeria, the bande, which is 208 naira, is still subsidized. The true cost of electricity in Nigeria is over 300 naira. But because there's one form of government subsidy or the other, people are paying, 208 naira, or even band B, band C that are paying, below 70 naira. So the regulation allows, mini grid developers to charge a cost-reflective tariff, meaning that if you decide to charge 10 naira per kilowatt hour of electricity, as long as that 10 naira per kilowatt hour is a reflection of your tariff, of your cost rather, and the community agrees to pay that 10 naira, then it has good to go. It's like a willing buyer, willing seller approach. And when you look at it, we did an analysis a couple of years ago where we calculated how much it would cost the distribution company to, create a distribution infrastructure from their closest, distribution to a rural community. We found out that it would cost over maybe 100 to 200 million naira. That was around 5 years ago. And the revenues that will come out from that community may not repay that investment in 20 years. So why does it now make sense for the disco to, or for the government to try to run, distribution infrastructure several hundreds of kilometers across,
So you're telling me now that mini grids work, and
100%.
Yes, 100% it works. But from your experience, Suf, you've had 30 mini grids already, so you can speak to this firmly. What were some of the challenges? Because we are looking at the success story now. Maybe we have forgotten how we started and how, because I know some of the mini grids while I was still actively working in the space. Of course, I know some of the challenges to get a mini grid in any community. What were some of your challenges, and what are the challenges you see for the sector itself? And if we now agree that mini grids work, for off-grid and underserved communities, Where are you seeing the opportunities that we can improve on? I want you to speak to that, please.
Yeah, thank you. So if you go back, and I think you should still have something to do with the sector, if you go back some 5-7 years ago, when we started seeing, mini grids become, mainstay in our energy generation, there were so many issues. Access to finance, at
that was one issue. I remember that issue. Access to finance was a big problem. Do we still have that as a problem till now?
Well, not as it was before,
because not at the scale.
Now you now have now you now have so many local currency financing. There are infrastructure funds funding mini grids in Nigeria. The banks are now playing a more active role. Back then, 7 years ago, you have to go and raise a euro or a dollar denominated facility to build mini grids in Nigeria. And by the time you are done building the mini grids, Naira has depreciated. You are paying back in dollar, your revenue is in Naira. So those are some of the challenges we face. At that time, when we built our first mini grid, there was no mini grid regulation. So when there were uncertainty around, what will it look like 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line. Now there's a mini grid regulation. What would happen if a disco expands into the community where you operate. Of course, the infrastructural challenges, poor road networks, when you move from one state in Nigeria to another state in Nigeria, you tend to see disparity in terms of regulation and what is obtainable, educational level of the people you are dealing with, because when people don't understand, what you are trying to do, and some of them, because, some politicians have promised them will give you electricity over the years, and then when you get there, they think you are coming, because why would somebody leave Abuja and says he wants to give me electricity in a rural community in Kogi State or in Niger State? They can't seem to understand that. So those are some of the challenges we face. Of course, the technical know-how. 7-8 years ago, there were fewer solar engineers in the country. Now, there are so many trainees, NAPTIN, GIZ. There are so many renewable energy programs in the country that are now training, engineers, training people on how, to operate, to install, and to do.
So you're saying the challenge on skill and talent is easy now. You can easily get those talent within the space. Is that no longer a challenge?
It's still a challenge, but of course, unlike, for example, I was having a conversation this morning, and I said to them, the people or the oil and gas company, they don't need to do anything. So many universities in Nigeria are training people for, marine engineering, for this, for that. I think there's only one university in Nigeria that has solar energy as a course, so it's not like it's better, but it's not like we're
not just where we used to be those years back.
Exactly. We've seen significant improvements, and now there are, of course, the basic knowledge is electrical engineering, having, and so when you have a lot of people, a lot of universities or polytechnics, doing electrical engineering courses, but you then need to step that down, to specifically to renewable energy, to solar, and all the dynamics around, what we do in that.
So you're saying there are challenges, but we're not where we used to be 5, 6, 10 years ago. There has been progress significantly.
Yes, we've significantly moved. Maybe 5 years ago or 7 years ago, you had maybe less than 10 companies. Today you have over 50 companies. There are now training institutes, across the north and south of the country. There are now curriculums for solar energy trainees that are now certified, with the last speaker mentioned, COREN, NEMSA, there are so many things that are now being done that we didn't have before. Now there are standards, and we can only, improve from there. And then, over the next 5-10 years, you would have seen significant difference, now within the sector.
So you're saying that mini grids will significantly play a key role in our energy transition, or the broader energy transition for Nigeria, even for Africa as we're looking at it, because, from what you have shared now, it means it is working and it will work for many communities. So where are the opportunities you see now going forward that we must begin to work towards to improve how this will work for us, to even connect more Nigerians? 86 million Nigerians still lack access to energy. And I don't know if you were at Dar es Salaam at the Africa Energy Summit for Mission 300. You can see the conversation at the summit will tell you that there's still, more, issues that we need to solve on this. Where do you see opportunities and how we can work towards it?
Yeah, thank you, Wisdom. To be honest with you, mini grid is a solution, is a future. We've seen it and we are not going back. There are so many communities that we have today that if we take away our services from those communities, like we are taking them back to the dark age, they can't even imagine how they lived, 10, 20, 30 years before without electricity, and there are so many, over hundreds of those communities spread across this country, by so many developers, electrifying these communities, and the opportunities are huge. We're talking about isolated, communities. Communities are not connected to the national grid. There's so much opportunity in the interconnected mini grid space, and you are beginning to see conversations because ask yourself, there are so many places in this country that are still experiencing less than 12 hours of supply every day. Those places, if in fact, the best way to look at it is that where are our major power stations in the country? When you take the dams, the hydro power stations, they're in the northern part of the country. Some of those powers are transported to the south and to the west of the country. And look at, we've had 2 grid collapses this year alone, and that's because, there's a lot of instability, in the electricity infrastructure. So mini grids, decentralized energy solution is a future where we're able to generate power in a particular location to serve people in that location. That's what mini grid is. You can use mini grid for so many applications. You can use it for healthcare. You can use it for agriculture. You can use it for commercial and industrial solutions. You can use it for anything. So mini grid is not only tied to rural communities. As long as it's a solution that is decentralized, and you are using it for a particular place to serve, a particular set of customers. And NEC expects, mini grid to be at up to 1 megawatt. Now there are conversations currently ongoing to increase that threshold, to 5 megawatts. If you take some certain, countries in Africa, you can go up to 50 megawatts without even getting a regulation. Here you must get a regulation even if you are you must get a permit or license if you are doing above 1 megawatt. And now that you're beginning to see a lot of 1 megawatt projects, it's going to create administrative bottleneck to begin to go back to next. So there are a lot of things being done in that area to push that threshold from 1 megawatt to 5 megawatts. So there are opportunities in for investors who are coming into the space. There are opportunities for original equipment manufacturers. So there are opportunities for developers as well to scale their work within this sector.
So with the Nigeria Electricity Act, we know that different states now are creating their market. So far, NEC has published that 10 states have been able to establish, their policies, and those regulatory transfers are happening. And very soon there will be 100% transfer to these states. But my argument always has been that even before now, these states, they are able to leverage off-grid solutions like mini-grid to power the off-grid community, but they were not doing it. So do you think anything will be different now? Players like yourself, developers like yourself, are you already being engaged? Are there roles you see playing when we decentralize the market to the states?
Thank you, Wisdom. You must understand that it's not the government's job to create infrastructure. The government job is actually to put the policies, the frameworks in place so that private entities, investors, developers can come into that space and thrive. So there's actually no way, government or state government would have invested their own money in mini grids or in energizing their rural communities. There are so many challenges around that space, but what is happening now is that as these states begin to take charge of their own electricity market, they're able to localize the problem and then also localize the solution. And of course, we're already having conversations with some states, because it's then easy to manage than when everything is being managed centrally from them. For example, you look at some discos, their operations cut across 3, 4, 5, 6 states. But now they have to be dealing with the state. So when the state government looks at maybe a particular region and sees that the disco is not properly set, they can tell the disco, you know what, we need you to franchise this area, to us so that we can give this area to, maybe certain developers to then do generation, do distribution, and properly serve. So we see that, over the next couple of years,
yes,
we should have better, electricity at the state level.
Mr. Alo, before I let you go, so your funding from IFC, quickly, Where are you channeling this funding to? What should we see? What expectations we should see in the next couple of months and years from Haven Hills?
Yeah, thank you. So the funding from IEC is to help us scale. Like I mentioned, we intend to build a couple of mini grids over the next 12 to 18 months, and that connecting several thousands of customers, who have never had access to electricity. The goal is that over the next 3 to 5 years, we want to be serving at least 1 million unique customers, meaning that we are connecting 1 million Nigerians who have never had access, to electricity. Of course, the funding will also help us increase, our footprints, not just in the rural community, but also, a new interconnected mini grids project, developing the technical capacity of our teams to be, because it's not just about building this project, it's also building projects that are sustainable. And, we can ensure that we have projects, operating over the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Thank you so much. Mr. Olusegun Odunaya is the CEO of Haven Hills Energy Limited, and we've been discussing how we can boost energy supply for Nigeria, challenges and opportunities, and he's been able to give us some good insight. Mr. Olusegun, thank you so much for your time. We'll follow the work, and we'll come back. I'm sure we can have you back sometime in the future to look at the progress you've made.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the work you are doing with Energy Outlook.
Thank you. All right. This is the much we can take this week on the Energy Outlook. Until next week, please make sure you follow us on social media and all the social media channels. And, of course, stay glued to your television next week as we come back. You can watch all episodes on YouTube at Official Upgrade TV, our official YouTube channel, and all previous episodes. You can catch up the conversations if you wish to. My name is Wisdom Chap Jumbo. Until I see you next week with another important conversation.
Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word. Energy security is one of the most pressing issues for many developing countries like Nigeria. And if there's going to be any meaningful progress, addressing our energy issues is non-negotiable.
I need to see light for my house. Make them do something.
Band A is expensive. I literally have to turn off all my appliances just to reduce costs.
We need light.
Introducing the Energy Outlook, your go-to show for everything energy. Every week, we'll bring you the latest insights, innovation, and in-depth analysis of Nigeria energy sector. From policy discussions to regulatory insights, we will analyze the key decisions influencing growth and sustainability in the energy sector. We'll bring you the human stories behind the headlines, giving you a personal perspective on the broader energy challenges. Join me every Friday at 6 p.m. for the Energy Outlook, your guide to the future of energy, where energy means business.